Today we're going from the study of Revelation, which is the last book in the Bible, an apocalyptic book which tells us what's over the horizon, things to come into the future. We go from the last book of the Bible to the first book, and Genesis. And our lesson is the call of Abraham, or Abram, and who will later be known as Abraham. And the book of Genesis is broad in scope, and it really falls into two parts. The first part deals with four great happenings that occur. The first, of course, is the creation of the universe, where light is divided out from darkness. And the next is the fall of humanity, the story of Adam and Eve, and the universal flood. The world is full of wickedness, and God brings the flood to destroy it, but saves Noah and his family. Last is the Tower of Babel in the first part, and that's where God scatters humanity because they wanted to build a tower to their own glory, to build it up to heaven. And so he scatters them by having different languages. So in chapter 11 of Genesis, there's a history given of one of Noah's sons, Shem, S-H-E-M, and he will be an ancestor of Abraham. And throughout Genesis, an important theme is that of family, lineage, what you inherit, generation to generation to generation. Now, the second part of Genesis really falls into the patriarchs, and Abraham, Isaac, and then Jacob, and then the story of Joseph. And I believe the book closes with the death of Jacob. The call of Abrams, though, is our lesson today. And the text is from Genesis 12, 1 through 5, and then verse 7, and then chapter 15, 1 through 7. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." So Abram went, as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Abram took his wife Sarah and his brother's son Lot, and all of the possessions that they had gathered, and the persons whom they had acquired in Haran, and they set forth to go to the land of Canaan. When they had come to the land of Canaan, Abram passed through the land to the place of Shechem, to the oak of Moreh. At the time the Canaanites were in the land. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he built there an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him. After these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. "Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield. Your reward shall be very great." But Abram said, "O Lord God, what will you give me? For I continue childless, and the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus." And Abram said, "You have given me no offspring, and so a slave born to my house is to be my heir." But the word of the Lord came to him, "This man shall not be your heir. No one but your very own issue shall be your heir. He brought him outside and said, "Look toward the heaven and count the stars, if you're able to count them." Then he said to him, "So shall your descendants be." And he believed the Lord, and the Lord reckoned it to him as righteousness. Then he said to him, "I am the Lord who brought you from Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to possess." Now, the place where the calling took place was Ur in the land of the Chaldeans. And Ur was a city that's been described as a region in Mesopotamia between the Tigris and the Euphrates River, near where the present site of Babylon, the ruins of Babylon are located. And Ur is described as an unbelieving and idolatrous society. And why did God choose Abram, of all people? From the text, he's a very ordinary person. He's not a person associated with any government post. He's not described as being particularly wealthy. He's not described anything out of nothing but the ordinary. But it's by faith that Abraham, when he was called by God, he obeyed. He was going out from a place where he lived, a place where he was raised, had friends, family. He was known, a place where he was to receive an inheritance, and was leaving to go to a place not even knowing where he was going. God didn't tell him where he's going to start with. It's Canaan that comes later. But the important thing was that Abram had faith in God. He believed in God. Put another way, Abram was leaving a life of comfort, worldly pursuits, and trusted in God, who told him to leave. And he chose to leave. God makes a covenant relationship. A covenant, of course, is an agreement. And what does God promise Abram? A number of things. He will found a great nation. God will bless him. God will make his name great. God will cause him to bless others. Those who bless Abram will be blessed. Those who curse him will be cursed. And everyone on earth will be blessed through him. Now, that last statement, we believe that, of course, as Christians, this would take place through Christ and a descendant of Abram, through Jacob. Now, the Lord promises to give Canaan to Abram, and Abram builds an altar there. Now, God promises Abram he will have an heir, and his descendants will be as numerous as the stars in the heavens. Now, what is important is that Abram believed in God, and God declared Abram righteous because of his faith. Now, there are problems right from the get-go. Abram's old, and his wife Sarah is still unable to bear a son. And so what Sarah does is to convince a slave girl named Hagar to be kind of the surrogate. She'll have the male child where Sarah could not. And of course, what happens once Hagar is pregnant, they begin to have a falling out. They begin to argue. They can't get along, to the point that Hagar is driven out of the camp with a child. And the child will be known as Ishmael. And the Lord assures Hagar that her descendants will be numerous as well. And later, when Sarah overhears the Lord's promise concerning the birth of Isaac, she laughs out loud through the tent wall when she overhears the promise to her husband, because she's so old, in their 80s and 90s, something like that. And but of course, the strife between the families, between the descendants of Ishmael and the descendants of Abraham are numerous. It's right interesting. On the Travel Channel one day, I saw how Abraham, of course, is considered the father of both peoples. There's a sarcophagus in one of the cities, I think it's Jerusalem in Israel. Half of the sarcophagus extends into, the Jewish synagogue, but the other half on the other side of the wall is a mosque. They both revere Abraham. There's a life-size statue of Abraham in the city of Mecca. He's considered the father of both. But of course, that doesn't stop the struggle between them. Now, the family, and this is important, the family, the lineage of Abraham goes from Abraham to Isaac and his son, Jacob and Esau. And you see the conflict there. One of them's the hunter, one of them's rough, the older is Esau. The younger one is Jacob. But Jacob will be chosen out of the ordinary, the different than what would normally be the inheritance of the elder son getting it all. And there's something else. Jacob has some problems, some character problems. He's a trickster. And when he tricks, first of all, he tricks Esau into selling his birthright for a mess of pottage. And then to get his father's blessing, and once the blessing is given, can't be revoked, the father is almost blind. And so what Jacob does with the connivance of his mother is take some sheep's wool, pulls it over his back, and crawls up on the bed. So when Jacob touches it, he'll think it's Esau, and he gives him his blessing, and it can't be revoked. When Esau finds out about it, he says he'll kill him. And Jacob, of course, has to leave. But it's really interesting. Later in the book, they reconcile. And when they meet each other, they embrace. One of the important stories. And then, of course, there's the strife within the families continue. There's the descendants of Jacob. He has 12 sons, and one of them is Joseph, the younger one. Once again, it's going to be Joseph that's chosen. And the other brothers hate him, and they can't stand him except one. And they're not going to kill him outright. One of the sons just won't go along with it. But they drop him down a well where they know that he'll die. And then, of course, the passing caravan picks him up. He's taken to Egypt, and you know the rest of the story. He becomes powerful. And then there's famine in the land, and the brothers have to come seek help in Egypt. They don't even recognize Joseph when they appear before him to beg. He knows them, but they don't know him. So what follows, of course, later, there's a Pharaoh who does not know Joseph, is a story, I think, in Exodus. And then you've got the Exodus following. So now what's the lesson in Genesis? And what does it tell us today? What kind of lesson? Is strife in families? We know that. We know that we must maintain our faith in God no matter what life brings us, no matter what difficulties come our way. And is there a person here who hasn't had some difficulty in life, some problem that they've encountered? May have been in school, may have been growing up, it may have been in any number of things. But we learn in Genesis that we must maintain our faith in God no matter what happens, and that we learn the importance of family. Our family heritage is important. And as I mentioned, every family at some point in life will experience some problems, whatever they are, but we remember our roots more oftentimes than not. Now, there's a Southern writer that I particularly like, is William Faulkner. And he talks about the importance of Genesis in a lot of his works. A lot of them deal with family. And in his novel, Go Down Moses, he presents us with a family that has its traditions, its rituals. Every year, there's going to be a hunt. Every year, they're going to save the last day of the hunt to hunt old Ben, a bear that is a tremendous bear that is rifling all the corn cribs, that warns all the other bears off. It's almost impossible, I think, to be able to kill the bear. But they're going to save that. And it has its strict obedience to its traditions. There's this one guy that uses the same gun And as a part wears out, he gets the other part to replace it. And then finally, in the last hunt, the only thing left out of the gun that was original was the trigger. And that was it. That hadn't been replaced. But there's a strict adherence to tradition. But as Faulkner shows us, along with the adherence to tradition in the family, there's another responsibility, and that's to do what's morally right. There's this moral duality, this struggle between what we have been taught, what we think growing up, and what we believe is right or wrong. William Faulkner described it this way, that all literature shows the conflict within the human heart. And it's the conflict with what the individual believes to be right with what is traditional, what must be done this way or that way according to what he was taught. Now, in conclusion, we start with this. We believe, we trust in God. We follow the lessons of Abraham's descendant, our Lord Jesus Christ. We help others, we have faith, and we love. And of course, out of the ordinary, we can do the extraordinary, particularly working together. Money, honeys.
Thank you, Vic.
Thank you.
Yeah.